Uh, I'm still with David Marsh. It's been a delightful hour or so. Continuing our video tour of Allendale. We're going to talk about native vegetation, trees and regeneration. David, we're standing in one of your pasture improved paddocks, but there's some interesting things that are happening here in the paddock, and you've done some interesting things with planting trees, and there's some existing older natural vegetation trees here. Can you run us through sort of those three aspects and why they're here and what they're doing and your thoughts on that?
Sure. These there's a few big trees. You can't actually see them, can you?
Yeah, swing around. There we are.
Yeah, so there's this is a little remnant. We don't have that many remnants. When I came here, there was 3% woody vegetation on this place. Now there's 20%.
And what was the? Do we know what it was when white settlers turned up?
The common thought is that it was about 20% tree cover in these sorts of areas, but it would have varied a lot depending on burning and things like that. But yeah, that's a reasonably accepted figure. Of course, the bulk of the species that were there weren't trees; they were forbs and native grasses. So what's happened since we've been around, or since Europeans have been here, is we've shifted the number of species hugely backwards. You know, there are about 100 species per hectare, they think, before we started with agriculture. So we've simplified the landscape. Now that has issues for resilience, but what we've tried to do here is we've planted this, direct seeded these trees up here where you can see now. There's about 4 hectares there. That was it was a washed out dam at the top end of it, and there was a bit of a wash away down in there, but that's stabilised it completely. I've now pulled the fence down, just this year pulled the fence down around those trees so the stock can get in and get shade. But the interesting thing for me was actually all these volunteer little trees where we're standing that have come from seed fall out of these big trees. Now they've come up in Phalaris, which is very competitive. And they started coming up in about 2010 when the drought was breaking. So that's very exciting. If you've got trees and they're not having any progeny, you've got a terminal landscape in a way. So it's very exciting to me that A, they've germinated and survived, and B, we've been able to help them do that by putting, for a few years we've had an electric tape around these trees when the cattle have been here. So that's allowed them to get up to the size where they can handle the cattle.
And David, we've got some existing those larger trees there. What's the significance of them, not just in producing seed that's dropping and growing here, but what else? What other roles do they play in the landscape?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of real estate in these trees because they're old. They've got a lot of hollows in them, so they're very important for nesting sites for birds. I haven't actually seen superb parrots in these trees, but it's quite likely that they could be nesting in these trees. But there's 125 and increasing numbers of birds that have been identified on this property since the 80s. So we've had people from Canberra coming over and counting birds, and as the habitat has gone up, the bird species have increased. Now they're 2 indicators of a landscape returning to a more healthy balance.
And David, do you collect seed from not maybe these particular ones, but do you collect native seed, or have you in the past?
I have done. Yeah. I have collected quite a lot of seed, and we used to grow quite a lot of tube stock until we started direct seeding. Probably we stopped that. It's a great thing to do. I'm a bit too lazy to do that now, but other people are very good at it, so we don't mind encouraging them and buying a few. But yeah, if you can get trees to regenerate where they stand, that's a wonderful thing.
I heard a rumour the other day that Burra Landcare Community Group is wanting to start up a native tree nursery, which would be a great thing to do. So if anyone's got some spare cash, contact myself or David or Burra Landcare, and it'd be very kindly taken care of. If you want to help contribute to the landscape and putting trees in, it's quite a serious thing. I think it'd be great if Burra Landcare, for instance, had city members, like people who can come down, a couple of times a year, contribute to the landscape, see it evolving, knowing what they're doing in terms of creating, you know, habitat for superb parrots, that sort of thing. Anyway, something.
Well, that's, I mean, there is already, I'm not sure how old it is, maybe 20 years now, relationship with North Sydney Bush Care. They come up and plant trees in this area every year. And yeah, so that's a wonderful relationship.
David, my arm's getting sore now. I'm going to have to give we'll go with the next one.
Yep. Okay.
See you soon.